This is the newly refreshed Peugeot 5008. And it's one of the 4 vehicles that are leading the French automaker's rebirth here in the Philippines. The other 3 being the 3008 compact SUV, 2008 subcompact SUV, and the Traveler Premium Van. This 7-seater Peugeot 5008 competes in a segment that consists of the likes of the Mazda CX-8, the Kia Sorento, or at least indirectly, with body-on-frame SUVs like the Toyota Fortuner. So, is this French SUV any good? From a styling perspective, Peugeot's current design language is simply on point. And for this new 5008, designers have given it a new frameless grille that's flanked by fang-like LED daytime running lights, which single-handedly is its most distinct design feature. Of course, unsurprisingly, you also get LED headlights as standard. And with these changes sa kanang front end, sobrang kakaiba tingnan ng Peugeot 5008 on the road. And paniguradong mag-i-stand out ka sa paligid na puro ang laman ay Toyota Fortuner or mga Mitsubishi Montero Sport. At ang forma niya ay hindi lang sa kanyang harap. Because if you take a look at its rear end, its roofline and clear LED taillights look very distinct. And katulad ng kanyang harap, you wouldn't mistake this for any other SUV out there. Overall, maganda at maporma ang Peugeot 5008. And as a matter of fact, hindi kami magtataka if you're gonna buy the 5008 simply because of its design. Kaya dahil dyan, dumako naman tayo sa interior ng kotseng ito. So now that we're here inside the new Peugeot 5008 and I love the iCockpit interior, I love the layout of the digital instrumentation and the infotainment system. I'm actually a fan of the gauge cluster. Usually kasi yung interior ng Peugeot, itong iCockpit layout nila, you have this oval steering wheel which is punggok sa elite niya, you know. And depending on your body type, depending on how you adjust your driving position, that can actually affect yung view mo sa digital gauges, no? But for me, at least sa katawan kong ito, I am okay with it. Doesn't block naman yung view ko ng digital gauges. So, I'm fine. I'm fine with the driving position. I actually like the driving position kasi it towers over other cars, and I also like the way that the piano-style keys here are laid out. I like how tactile and very intuitive they are to use. May contention point nga lang with this interior is yung kanyang climate controls, no? So, I am not a fan of manufacturers putting the climate controls sa touchscreen. I really don't like it if they do that, sa totoo lang. You know, it's just 2 or 3 steps more than necessary just to change yung iyong temperature, mga ganyan. So other parts of the interior that are really good are yung kanyang materials. I love the material quality of this Peugeot 5008. I love the fabric here sa dashboard. By the way, the seats are leather. Baka isipin yung fabric ng seats, but it's not. I like the fabric and the soft touch material combination dito sa dashboard niya. It feels really, what do you would call this? Chic pa nga eh. It's more on the chic side. Para ang, ano niya, it's fashionable. It's French, by the way. So, yeah, you kind of expect that on a car that's French, diba? You expect them to be fashionable, stylish. It's really a stylish interior. I love the soft touch plastics. It's really generous yung amount niya. Here on the doors, you have this fabric material nga also on the doors. At night, I love the ambient lighting, yung kulay blue ambient lights. It also runs through the perimeter of the panoramic sunroof, yung kanyang blue ambient light. It's really nice. It's a really nice environment kapag gabi dito sa kotseng ito. There's also that blue ambient lighting sa cup holders and also in the wireless charging pad. It's a really nice place to be in. Apart from a few quirks that's typical of French cars, I mean in terms of ergonomics, more of you can how you adjust the trip computer. That's about it for me. I actually love this interior. There's nothing much for me to complain. And there's actually a lot of positives to say about this interior. I really like this iCockpit for me. And that also leads me to the car's infotainment system. It's in terms of controls, medyo nawiwindang ako nung simula sa menu structure niya, pero once I got to the logic of it, once na naintindihan ko yung logic ng kanang settings, mga ganun, I'm okay with the infotainment system. It's responsive, it responds to your inputs really well. You have onboard navigation if that matters to you. You also have Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, and wireless charging, by the way. It's a nice infotainment system. Medyo may onting learning curve because of how the French do their thing, pero it's not unintuitive. It's more of once you understand the menu structure. Hindi siya yung, there are other brands that are really unintuitive no matter what happens, pero dito, it's one of those things na if you get the logic of the French, you'd immediately understand the layout of the infotainment system.
With the 5008's infotainment system out of the way, this is now a good time to talk about the car's second row.
I love how spacious this car is. It's actually not that long, at 4.6 meters long. So, it's still within the compact SUV range, no? Hindi siya nasa mid-size SUV. But I love how they designed the interior. Headroom. Ito. Headroom's really generous. I really like the comfort levels here at the back. Kasi it's really maluwag. Makakati-4 pa ako sa maluwag niya eh. In terms of creature comforts here at the back, you have your own climate zone dito sa likod. Well, not zone. You only can control yung fan speed. You can control your own temperature. You also have a USB port here at the back. Isa lang na USB port. And you also have a large panoramic sunroof, which lets a lot of light in. And that's one of my favorite features in a car, actually. And that leads me to a nice segue to talk about the car's third row seats. So as for getting to the Peugeot 5008's third row, it's actually as easy as pulling a lever and pushing that seat forward. And once you're here, okay, so I'm 5'10", somewhere in between 5'10", 5'11", and I'm an adult, and you know, usually with third row seats, I don't really fit that well. I'm practically wedged yung aking leg room, no? But here's the thing. There's so much leg Peugeot 5008 na to, which means you can negotiate for a bit more legroom. I actually fit comfortably here in the Peugeot 5008's third row. As in, no kidding, I'm actually gonna be okay here on a long journey. Okay, so my thigh support is lacking. In terms of legroom, it's still onti pa rin. Pero again, for a third row, now that this seat is moved forward, I can really fit here back at the third row ng komportable, which means you have a lot of room to explore for such a compact SUV.
As for cargo carrying capability, the Peugeot 5008 offers a good amount of space, at least for the most part. Because if you have the third row seats folded up, you only have 167 liters of space, which is tiny by any measure. And then if you fold those third row seats down, you are then provided with 952 liters of space, which puts it at the bigger end of the compact SUV segment. And then finally, folding those second row seats gives you more than 2100 liters of space, which easily makes the Peugeot 5008 the most spacious in its class when the second row seats are folded. And then as for engines, your only choice is a 1.6-liter 4-cylinder turbocharged gasoline engine that's mated to a 6-speed automatic transmission. Though despite this vehicle being a crossover SUV, the Peugeot 5008 doesn't come with all-wheel drive. And so with all of these powertrain specs out of the way, how does the Peugeot 5008 perform on the road?
So as for its handling, the car is, I guess, what you would call secure. I've pushed this car to its limits pagdating sa kanyang grip compared to, let's say, yung mga CX-5 and CR-V ng mundo natin. And the handling secure, though it's easier to reach this car's limits of kanyang handling, so it's easier to go to an understeer with this car. But for most people, you know, you're not gonna be able to reach that. It's only us people lang naman who test the car's handling, no? But yeah, it stays secure, it stays comfortable, it's relaxing to drive, and this is reflected on the way the car steers. So, steering's light, not exactly full of feedback, but, for most people naman, they're okay with that. They prefer nga a light steering, so it'll be relaxing for them to drive this car. And now that we're here driving through some twisties, in terms of ride, speaking of which, in terms of riding, suspension niya is good. Though there's a bit of firmness sa rear suspension niya, sa rear torsion din suspension niya. So, I guess that's more of to compensate for the fact na syempre this is a 7-seater, and in order to syempre prevent the car from yung nakatingala siya kapag yung loaded yung kotse nito with 7 people, they stiffened up the suspension a bit at the rear. Pero it's not too bad. It still stays relatively comfortable. I mean, it deals with bumps pretty well. And the body, there's a bit of roll, but it's nothing too dramatic. The engine performs really well, the 1.6-liter turbocharged gasoline engine. For the most part, sa aking experience, it really feels more like a 2.5-liter naturally aspirated gas engine sa totoo lang. It feels linear, that's what I mean. It feels linear, it feels secure, it feels linear. There's a meaty torque band from the low to high RPMs. Usually sa mga small turbocharged engines kasi their torque is mostly concentrated on the lower RPMs. But here in the Peugeot 5008, maganda yung torque spread niya. So, yeah, it feels really linear. It feels really good to, let's say, to overtake with this car. This car also uses a 6-speed automatic, and it's a really good one, by the way. So, past Peugeots used to have an automated manual transmission, an AMT, so hindi siya yung traditional na torque converter automatic. No? So it's a good thing that Peugeot switched to a traditional torque converter automatic pagdating dito sa generation ng Peugeot 5008 na ito, no? And it's a good one. It's a good 6-speed automatic. It's made by Aisin, the Japanese brand Aisin, no? So alam mong magtatagal to kasi it's basically a Japanese company that's owned by Toyota. It's one of Toyota's major suppliers of transmissions, no? And yeah, it's a far cry from the past Peugeots that used to have an automated manual transmission, and it delivers good shifts. Maybe not as quick as I would like, but it does the job. It's smooth. It gives you the gear that you're requesting kapag let's say you're gonna overtake, and you have paddle shifters here if you wanna take over the driving ng kanang 6-speed automatic. So now that we're here on a highway, the Peugeot 5008 is actually a very refined vehicle, no? So, out here at triple-digit speeds, the car is really refined, really quiet. There's not much engine noise unless the usual, yung pag binirit mo talaga siya. But it's not intrusive. I mean, sakto lang. The car is really stable. Even if you're traveling at triple-digit speeds and then may onting rough na mga surfaces, the car doesn't get upset by any of those road conditions. The suspension does a good job of filtering out bumps, no? Though yun nga lang, there's a bit of firmness at the rear suspension. May naramdaman akong onting firmness, but that's mostly to compensate kasi for the fact na syempre this is a 7-seater, and in order to make the car feel more kapag yung loaded siya, hindi siya mag-i-squat or titingala pala rather, syempre you have to firm up the suspension at a bit sa likod, no? But yeah, it's pretty good. The ride's pretty good. Steering is weighty kapag nasa if you're up to speed na, kapag mabilis ang takbo mo, the steering weights up. So ngayon there's plenty of stability sa steering wheel, so meaning while you're driving straight you don't have to do much steering corrections, which makes this a relaxing car to drive. And with that in mind, it's a good time to talk about the car's fuel economy. So again, disclaimer, lagi ko sasabi to sa mga reviews ko madalas, I don't live in Metro Manila, so hindi ko ito matetest sa traffic sa totoo lang since hindi mo taga doon, and expect a high fuel economy figure from me. So over the course of nearly a week with this car, I was able to achieve around 10.1 kilometers per liter, hovering around 10.1-10.5 kilometers per liter. So it's pretty good for a compact crossover SUV that's gasoline at hindi diesel, no? And yeah, that's basically pretty much it in terms of the Peugeot 5008's driving experience.
Buying a Peugeot 5008 is quite simple. There's only one variant to choose from, which is priced at 2.26 million pesos. And apart from the features we've mentioned in this review, the 5008 also comes with stuff like lane departure warning, lane keeping assist, blind spot warning, though oddly enough no rear cross traffic alert, and a driver attention monitor. So, is the new Peugeot 5008 worth it? In all honesty, the Peugeot 5008 isn't setting any benchmarks in terms of driving dynamics, though there's no denying the fact that it's a comfortable and relaxing SUV to drive. It's also a hugely practical and stylish SUV inside and out. But at 2.26 million pesos, not a lot of people will be willing to spend that much on an SUV solely for French quirkiness. And at nearly the same price as a Mazda CX-8, which offers a bigger interior and better driving dynamics, the Peugeot 5008 needs more than French quirkiness to be able to stand out in its segment, or probably a slightly lower price tag.